Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Inhi, and I lead our, what we call our Watson Applications, Business Applications unit, where we infuse AI and disruptive tech, including blockchain and other new technologies, into the portfolio. I am truly honored to be here today and to share with you my own personal story, but also some interesting lessons learned. And so with that, let's go back in time. Let's go back in time 15 years ago, 2004, end of 2004. The #1 hit single at the time was Usher's, and featuring Little John. Yeah, you know, the club music. Everyone, you got it in your head? All right. Last season episode of Friends. And some of those that are so young that you were still a baby, just follow along. You'll appreciate this. Top movie, Lord of the Rings, Return of the Kings. Shrek 2, okay. Technology, the release of the mini iPod. The release of the first true BlackBerry device, smartphone device. This is pre-iPhone and iPad. 2004, end of 2004. George W. Bush was reinstated for his second presidential term, and the world was in war, in conflict with Iraq. This was the time period. This was the time period that I entered the executive ranks. This is a time period where among Fortune 500 CEOs, only 1.5% were women. This was a time when you had women in senior leadership roles only represent 20% of those senior roles in these Fortune 500 companies, but globally around more industries. Roll the clock forward 15 years. The world has changed. We have new phones. We have new devices. We have the social network. We have ride-sharing capabilities. Think about how much has advanced. And in that same time period, the number of women CEOs among the Fortune 500, 4.5%. We moved up 3 points. The number of women representing senior executive leadership roles, still in the low 20s. We did a survey, actually, with the intention and the assumption that times must have changed because the industry has changed, the market has changed, the global economics have changed. And what we did was we ventured to do a study interviewing 2,300 executives, women and men, across many different industries: technology, banking, healthcare, retail, industrial, government, with the hypothesis that times were changing. The Me Too movement, greater adoption and openness in terms of transparency around data, greater adoption of not only technology, but the connections that people have made because of the social connections available and the technology available. And what we discovered in the study, though, is that things haven't changed as much as we think in 15 years. And I'll tell you what we discovered, which was women, leadership, and sort of the leadership paradox. I want to make sure that we foster really a culture of inclusion. And one of the other things that we discovered through all of this is that there are lead runners in some of this. So first, of the 2,300 executives around the world in multiple countries and industries, only 18% were led in top senior roles by women. And I don't mean just the CEOs. I'm talking senior vice presidents, I'm talking managing directors and partners of firms, heads of HR and marketing, and we interviewed women and men in both male-dominated as well as women-dominated industries. But come on, in 15 years, the numbers are still the same. The second premise we also had was, why is it not being prioritized? And we asked, is it being prioritized? We assumed it was because it seemed like it was the right thing to do. We assumed because there was a general acceptance that it was the right thing to do. But when we actually asked the proactive question, Does your organization prioritize advancement of women? Almost 80% of them said no. So, what do we have the opportunity to do moving forward? Now, the other question that was asked, which I found incredibly interesting, was, well, how long do you think it would actually take us to get to gender parity at these levels? The average answer from the 2,300 women and men around the world in the most senior roles that are the strategic thinkers, the operators, and the industry giants of the world said, on average, more than 54 years. Another 2 to 3 generations of the working population. The piece that I encourage all of us right now to do is, we did find a unique pattern. We found a pattern of what I consider first movers. Those that in any industry, any world, and first times for any context are ones that take risk, and they take risk based on belief. They take risks based on a measured set of goals and programs and actions. And so we discovered some patterns of best practices, and this is the encouragement I have for everyone here, which is 5 actions you can take to ensure that we're part of the change and enable the change moving forward. So the action plan for all of us. 1, making advancing women a formal business priority. So how do you do that? Well, just like you would do anything else. If you have a business plan, so do you have a business plan for making that case? Have you documented a point of view of how the diversity and inclusion of not just women, but of all different perspectives and experiences is important to the way you engage your employees, the way you engage your client sets, and the way you want to innovate in terms of the innovations that you create for your company? So have you actually documented it? And it seems so simple, but once you actually document a plan, it starts to take effect, and it's something that people can then iterate on. The second piece we learned is you have to get leaders on board and accountable for results. So how do you instrument not just the metrics, but true accountability, a shared accountability? One of the unique things we did at IBM, I co-chair along with several other key leaders within the company, the Women's Executive Council within the company, to advocate and championing diversity. And we said, you know what? Let's be equal. Let's be equal in all dimensions, not just gender, but in multiple dimensions. And let's figure out who want to publicly vocalize the things that they want to be intentional about and the things that they want to hold themselves accountable for as business leaders in the company. And so we actually got, wonderfully, a number of IBM executives, but also executives from other companies and our clients participating in this movement, where we're intentionally publicizing the things that we want to hold ourselves accountable for within our companies, but even ourselves as individual leaders. And so my individual accountability commitment was to be intentional about ensuring that I recruit and consider diverse candidates and advocate for diverse candidates in all roles. Third, co-create goals for measurable progress. All things require for us to succeed is a shared agenda. And co-create means you have to get allies from every seat, every stakeholder. And it also means that you have to think about measurable goals, meaning progress. And for us, progress can be in the form of a pipe progression. So think about the next generation of the talent coming through the pipeline so that the numbers in terms of the availability of top talent are far greater. Think about measurable progress as even opportunities for education and mentoring. So the top risk takers took elements of things that were measurable and doable within a time box schedule. So it's put a time together. Time is a measurable progress. Place a set of actions. The fourth item that the leaders did was they embraced initiatives and policies to alleviate unconscious gender bias. A great example of this, especially in the technology arena, is blinded gender candidate slating lists, meaning you get to look at people's entire performance and or experience history without actually understanding their name or their ethnic background. And this is a great way that we do, even within IBM, elements of external hiring as well as engineering tests in terms of advancements in different categories. But blind gender testing is one of the scenarios, but there are other areas, which is just a level of consciousness and awareness and education and training. And so this is something that we notice that the front runners, the top companies that were actually making progress, not only in terms of their top line, but progress in terms of advancement of true inclusion, were actually doing things to raise the consciousness of their entire community. And number 5, obviously, is foster a culture of inclusion. And I'm going to take the lens here of not just mentorship and operating and role modeling, but one step further. One of the roles that I took and I was thoughtful about, especially after I became a mom, was it was very easy in a work environment to say, because you were married and you had a child, to say, I'm sorry, I have to leave early from this meeting because I have an engagement which is for my child in the afternoon. But if you were single or if you had no children, you know what, your commitment, whether it's to your church, your commitment because you're part of a community sports team, or your commitment because you're passionate about a nonprofit effort that you're doing, are equally part of your identity. You should equally be able to voice that. And part of this is about fostering a culture that allows that conversation to happen. So when I became a manager, it was really important for me to say, you choose, when you choose the opportunities that you need to make those choices that are personal choices on time, and manage that work time and flexibility, but in a way that works for the team, but is respectful for you as an individual, regardless of the role or the identity or the acceptance in a business society sometimes. And so with this, my call to action for everyone is really, we have the opportunity to change it. I have a desire to change it, and I think it starts with each of us. So thank you.